this is all very good as a context for people. I've got a little idea. I mean, I've read a little bit of, for instance, Alexander Dugin, and you talked about the Russians, and we discussed the idea of Christianity. You've now dissected that into two forms of Christianity which are at war, which is something we'll pick up later in the program for sure, because there is an ideological difference in the way it seems people like Putin and Alexander Dugin or Mr. Lavrov, the way they operate and the values and the traditions they seem to stand for, and those that are in the West, or certainly the American form of Christianity, which seems to be very Zionist leaning. So that's something to explore, but I think it's probably a good time to actually talk about some of the fundamentals. I mean, I understand from most of the Sunni and Shia predictions of the end of times, so this reference to the Mahdi and to the Messiah, there's a lot of overlap between Sunni and Shia, in terms of the predictions. There are 4 or 5 that are guaranteed within the Ahl al-Tashayyi that talk about, the Sufyani, they talk about, the Imam Mahdi's arrival, Dajjal, all these ideas are out there. There are other characters like the Yamani they mention, the Khorasani. There's there's a set of fixed events that they think are absolutely going to happen, and then there are others which are not necessarily fixed and could be changed by the divine. So, from your perspective, what are the fundamentals of the signs, if you like, of the return of the Mahdi, and where does Jesus Christ come into all this?
Well, first of all, we're going to have to postpone my response on this critically important subject of the methodological quandary which faces the world of Sunni scholarship as well as Shia scholarship. And I was attempting to explain that from what came from my teacher, Maulana Fadlur Rahman Ansari, rahimahullah, because the beginning of his response is to teach that absolute truth is in the Quran. The Shia world need to be reminded of that absolute truth is located in the Quran. The Sunni world needs to be reminded of that absolute truth is located in the Quran, but there's so much more left in the discussion on methodology if you are to be able to use the Quran to explain the world today. But we'll have to postpone that discussion because you have now turned to the subject of the timeline of events which will occur in the end time, in which, according to the Shia, the most important, by far, the most important event remaining to occur in history is the advent of Imam al-Mahdi. I went to Moscow for the first time in 2013. And Iran had preceded me in Moscow long before I went as a Sunni scholar. And when I went to Moscow and I met with the Russian Orthodox eschatologists, I found to my surprise, for me it was a surprise, that Islam, according to them, was one in which the most important event remaining to occur in history is the advent of the Imam al-Mahdi.
Right.
And I was surprised because that is not correct. And of course, I have to be polite with my brother, the Shia, because they are my brothers. We engage in respectful dialogue. The most important event by far, which comes from the Quran, not the Hadith, the Quran, to remaining to occur in history is not the advent of Imam al-Mahdi, not at all. It is the return of the Messiah. The Messiah was promised to the Israelite people. Allah made a promise to them. And the Messiah came. And the Messiah was Nabi Isa alayhi salam, Jesus, the son of the Virgin Mary. And there's only one virgin who ever gave birth to a son. There'll never be another one. And he came and he left. And the Quran firmly establishes the belief that he will return. I would be very happy to engage in dialogue with anyone who differs with me on that subject. Respectful dialogue. I'm not in a boxing match, no. So I was surprised. I had to now tell the Russian eschatologists, our view is different. And when I gave them our view, that the most important event remaining to occur in history is the return of Jesus, they were very pleased to hear that. They were very pleased because that was the same thing that they believed in.
Yes.
However, the advent of Imam al-Mahdi is of pivotal importance. Pivotal importance. Why has Allah, in His wisdom, why has He ordained that an Imam al-Mahdi will emerge at the end of history? Answer. Why did Allah teach the Quran to Nabi Isa alayhi salam? This is there twice in the Quran that Allah taught the Quran to Nabi Isa alayhi salam.
So Christ was taught the Quran.
In the Quran, Allah has twice said it. If no one knows it, don't blame me for that. Blame yourself. You don't study the Quran. Twice has Allah said in the Quran that He taught the Quran to Jesus. So why did He teach the Quran to Jesus? Answer, it's because Jesus has to come back. That's why. You need only 2 peanuts worth of common sense to understand. Because Jesus is going to return one day, Allah taught Him the Quran. So if Jesus is coming back, and if Jesus is taught the Quran, but also in addition to being taught the Quran, the verse twice says He was also taught the Torah and taught the Gospel. And in between the Quran on one side and the Torah and the Gospel on the other side, Allah gave Him wisdom. Allah sent the Quran to people who think. But we have stopped thinking. Iqbal is so correct. We have stopped thinking. If you think and you study this verse, you will see why Allah taught him the Quran and taught him the Torah and Gospel and put wisdom in between. Answer is because when He comes back, He's not coming back only to His ummah. He's also coming back to perform a function with this ummah of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. For that reason, He needed the Quran. And because He's between 2 ummahs and therefore 2 Khilafah states, one in Mecca led by the Imam, one in Jerusalem led by him, which will be the ruling state in the world. And he has to be between these 2 as the supreme legal thinker, the supreme law advisor and judicial ruler. Between the 2, he needs wisdom. So there are going to be 2 ummahs at the end of time, and both of them will have to be Khilafah states. For his ummah, we know he can do it himself. But for this ummah, it's hopeless. Who is going to be the Khalifa of this ummah? Is it going to be Ayatollah Khamenei? Who is going to be Khalifa of this ummah? Is it going to be the President of Egypt? Or those Yankee puppy dogs who are now ruling over Pakistan? Answer, it is impossible. Impossible. No one can do it. To bring back to the Sunni world of Islam any semblance of a Khilafah state, of what Imam Khomeini did in Iran. It's impossible on this side. The only way possible for the world of Sunni Islam to be restored to a Khilafah state is through a divine intervention. That is the rationale for the advent of Imam al-Mahdi. And so therefore, logically speaking, the advent of the Imam has to precede the return of Isa alayhi salam.
I see.
This is my reasoning.
So just to
The
say,
advent of the Imam is justified for this reason, that it is impossible to bring the Sunni world of Islam back to any semblance of a Khilafah state.
What-
Impossible
so
without a divine intervention.